I saw something today that made me. Well, it filled me with an absolutely blinding rage. What I saw was a picture of this smarmy little teenage shit stain standing in front of a Native American war veteran chanting, "Build the wall." I applaud the veteran's restraint as he just remained there, singing, playing his drum, basically just ignoring the kid and the rest of his little shit-stained friends that were also chanting "Build the wall." And these kids were from a Catholic school, and their teachers were standing in the background, watching them chant "Build the wall" at this gathering of Native Americans. I'm wondering to myself, how has our educational system failed so dramatically that those kids had absolutely no idea how moronic they were being? They believed that what they were saying was right. They didn't seem to grasp the concept that those people, that race, they were here before us. You know, us Caucasians, us privileged white people. They were here first. We were the illegal immigrants, as far as they are concerned. We murdered and slaughtered their people. We segregated their people to tiny plots of substandard land that they are still living on today. If anybody should be building a wall, it would be them. How has our educational system fallen so far that those kids didn't understand that they were here first? We are the intruders. How could they not understand that? How could their teachers be so morally bankrupt that they would sit back and watch? This is a Catholic school. These are people who are supposed to be religious. These people are supposed to believe in the teachings of Christ. The teachings that say, love unconditionally. Treat others as you would want to be treated. Help refugees. Help the hungry. Help the homeless. These are the things that are taught in the Bible that these people are supposed to believe in. This Catholic school. They have failed not only their religion, but they have failed their country. They have failed their children. Every single one of those teachers in that school should resign or be fired. The administration should be replaced. Honestly, the entire school should just cease to exist. And those children and the parents that reared them to think that what they were doing was okay should be thrown out of the country, because they are not American, and they are most definitely not Christian. That brings me to the other thing that I wanted to talk about, sort of. A dream I had a while back gave me an interesting thought experiment that my brain likes to revisit from time to time. And that thought experiment is based on something that had happened to me when I was a kid. When I was 12 and 13, I had a set of orthopedic procedures done to my ankles to correct some bone spurs. See, I didn't let bone spurs stop me as a kid. I had them surgically removed, unlike a certain corrupt orange politician. But during the first of those procedures, they were done a couple of months apart to allow me to, fully heal and recover between them, because back then it was a full-blown surgery with an incision that basically went halfway around my foot. Nowadays they do it with something called an arthroscope, which is little camera on a tube with some tools on the end, and they make a couple incisions, and they go in and they do it, and they pull it out, they put a band-aid on the incisions, and they send you home. I don't think they even knock you out for it anymore. It's amazing how medical technology has come along. But, back when I was a kid, they had to do a full surgical procedure, general anesthetic, OR. They kept me in the hospital for a couple of days afterwards for observation. It was a full surgical procedure. And during that first surgical procedure, we discovered that I have something called a paradoxical reaction to opioid medications. Opioids being morphine, Demerol, Marcan, those series of drugs, and codeine. Although I can tolerate codeine to a certain extent, I still get the slightly paradoxical reaction. And what a paradoxical reaction is that it has the reverse effect on your body than it should. So in the case of a central nervous system depressant, it acts instead as a central nervous system agonist. So I had a very, very bad reaction to the morphine. It screwed up my blood pressure, very nearly sent me in fibrillation, and it was not a good thing. During the second surgery, they changed the medications that they were using, and I had a much better time of it. But in a dream, I dreamt that the reaction I had to those medications was actually a lot worse, and I had ended up in a coma. And my dream decided to present me with the concept of having gone into a coma because of that reaction and then waking up. But when I woke up in the dream from that coma, I had all of the memories I have now in my 36-year-old self. And that really messed up my mind for a while, and still does, because I still think about the ramifications of something like that. Being in a 12-and-a-half-year-old body with the memories of a 36-year-old, the memories of all the tragedies that have happened. 9/11, Matthew Shepard, Columbine, Aurora, all of the Sandy Hook, all of these horrible things that have happened in these years, the popularity of school shootings, the rise of fascism in the United States, just, horrible, horrible things that have happened, and maybe I could prevent them. If things started playing out the way they had in my coma, did my mind, accurately predict the future, or maybe something happened that sent all of my memories back in time to that, 12-year-old. And the conclusion I ended up coming to was that I would probably end up institutionalized. I think it would quite likely drive a person insane. Because you'd know all of these things, but would you have the right to prevent them? And I know that a lot of people are going to bristle at me saying that, but in the wake of tragedies, change happens, and good things can come of it. Matthew Shepard's murder, and I'll talk a little bit more on that, led to, the beginnings of the awakenings of an equal rights movement for homosexuals. And now when Matthew Shepard was murdered, I was 15, and just starting to get... I was starting to realize that I had a non-traditional sexuality at that point. I was starting to clue in the fact that I was gay. And then Matthew Shepard, an openly homosexual male, gets mugged and murdered by a couple of rednecks who are serving life sentences. Honestly, I think they should have faced the death penalty for what they did. Would I have the right to prevent that? The whole point I was trying to get at there, talking about it, I'm 15, starting to learn about my sexuality, and this guy gets murdered. It affected me very strongly. It made me absolutely terrified to come out to my friends or family because I did not want to be killed for my sexuality. And society had just proven to a young man who was already really very confused about himself. Society had just proven that I would be killed for being the way I was. That scared me for a long time. That messed me up. But would I have the right to prevent it? Because a lot of good resulted in the wake of his murder. His mother became a force for good on the world. And, a lot of civil rights movements sprouted from that tragedy. Would I have the right to prevent it? Would preventing it have done anything, or would those men have just found another homosexual male to mug and murder? And then let's fast forward to something like 9/11. Would I have the right to prevent that? Thousands of people died in that. But if that situation had been prevented somehow, maybe that would have given Al-Qaeda time to get a hold of even a crude nuclear device, and maybe when they actually performed the attack that they meant to perform, it would have been far worse than what actually happened. Maybe by preventing a tragedy, I would open the door for something worse to happen. The whole thing with the butterfly and the hurricane. And it's a very heavy thing to think about. What would you do if you had the memories of your adult self as a kid? That's a weird thing to think about. Anyway, that's just my thoughts for the day. That little kid, that little shit that was mocking the veteran, he'd better hope that I never meet him, because I will mess him up. I'll take the jail time for it too, I don't care. Anyway, thanks for joining me. That's slightly more angry discussion than I normally have, but I needed to vent about that a little bit. Take care, folks. See you tomorrow.